Yeah, so the kids told me they wanted a cat for Christmas. I mean, normally we have ham, but I guess everything's different these days. Hey kids, Adam here. Today is the video I've been teasing about for a while. I'm going to walk through my pedal board, all my pedals, and show you what I'm using, how I'm using them, and give you some sound samples. For starters, I have a Pedaltrain Classic 1 SC. I have it propped up here on a box over here so you can kind of see it, and I can't really take it out of there. Underneath is a Truetone 1-Spot Pro 12 output isolated guitar pedals power supply. That's hard to say. I was using one of those 1-spot, you know, the standard like wall wart with a bunch of plugs on the end of it, and that just daisy chain, that just didn't work. I needed at least 8. As you see on the pedal board here, I have 9 things. And I was looking to add one more, maybe 2 more. So I needed more than 8. A lot of pedal boards, power supplies just have 8, but some of them aren't all 9 volts. So this is the one I found. This has worked really well. It mounts right in the bottom of the pedal board. I just drilled 2 holes in, and it works really well. I'm using George L cables for all the instrument cables, and then I'm using all the power cables that came with the Truetone 1-Spot. There were all sorts of different lengths and colors and things, and then I have it all Velcro down. Pedal, wire management isn't bad. It isn't the best, but it's pretty good. You can't really see too much from the top. So let's start with the pedal board where I plug in. So I plug in all the way in the upper right, and that is my tuner pedal. It is a Planet Waves Tru-Strobe pedal with true bypass. It's pretty slick. It's when it's out of tune, it will go counterclockwise. When it's flat, clockwise, and when it's sharp, you kind of just bring it down and bring it up. And when it evens out like that, it's in tune. Real quick tuning here. There are 2 outputs, close enough for rock and roll. There are 2 outputs on it. One is a bypass output where it cuts the sound out when I have it, and that's where I have it right now. There is another output right above it that will keep your feed going live. I just prefer to use it both as a kill switch and whenever I want to tune. I don't want people to hear that when I'm playing gigs. So we'll turn that off, and now we have sound. And then the lower pedal in the lower left here is a black loop looper system pedal. Basically what it does, when I go from the tuner, I go right into the input of this thing, and from there I have 2 separate loops. I have the top half of the pedal board is 1 loop, and then the bottom half is another loop. It's not like a looper pedal, like, you play a really cool little thing and then it loops and keeps playing, and then you play another little cool thing, and then 5 minutes later you can finally start playing your song. It's not one of those. It's just simply a signal loop pedal, and I'll show you why I want to use that in a second. Let's start with the bottom one. I'll just kind of go through pedal by pedal and show you which one's which. Start with the left here. This is the electro-harmonix bass soul food. It is the fried chicken of pedals. It's a distortion pedal. It's actually it's an overdrive pedal. It has a really cool grit to it, really cool bite to it. I have the 10 dB pad off, which means it's not engaged, which means I'm actually, with this bass really hot, I'm actually getting a hotter signal, but I find it handles it really well. And I use this in conjunction with a number of other different pedals. A lot of the times I'll use it with an octave. We'll get into the combinations in a second. I just want to go through each pedal. I usually do the drive all the way up, the blend all the way up, back off the volume a little bit, and move the treble so it's not really adding too much. I just want really that distortion sound and really keep the original sound of the bass. From there, we have the MXR Micro Flanger. I think this is the only pedal I own that's really not a bass pedal. This is just a normal flanger pedal in a smaller footprint. The old one used to be big. And I use this on like our song Kevin Space Adventures, the opening bass line. I leave it like this. I don't change it. I only use it really on a couple different things, more for a color. I don't want a really fast flange going on. I want more just an affected sound. I dare say almost a chorusy thing, although I'm really not a fan of chorus on bass. Next one is the MXR Bass Octave Deluxe. And I like the growl sound a little bit more than the girth, but I need the girth there to kind of just give it some more beef. And then I keep the mids are on the default of 800 hertz. I keep that in all the time, and I back off on the dry a little bit. And that kind of sounds like this. I use that in a combination with a lot of effects. I almost rarely do it alone, except for in our song, Everything Will Be Alright. All of the songs that I mentioned in this video from my band Underground Hive are on this link up here, which is a playlist to the YouTube version of this album, Themes from Strange Dreams. It's available on all streaming platforms. Take a listen, let me know what you think. Let's move on here. The first actual pedal that I bought for this board was the MXR bass envelope filter. And for many, many, many years, I used to use, it was bass, chord, plugged into the amp, and that was it. And I would maybe use a tuner here and there, but I didn't use any pedals. I didn't really have any need for them. But I wanted to experiment. I wanted to play with some neat sounds. There's a lot of neat things going on, funk bass. And the first pedal I wanted to add is this bass envelope filter. And it's like an auto wah. It's also good for slap. And I use it in conjunction with a lot of things. It works really well with this bass soul food for like a distorted wah, auto wah, and a kind of cool thing. Just some really cool sound effects in there that I can get. Don't really slap on it with the distortion on. It would work, but there's like almost a whitewash of static going on there. Let's stick in the bottom row. I use the distortion a lot with the Bass Octave Deluxe. And one of the songs is Under the Moonlight. The main bass riff that goes through almost the whole thing is. Really like that sound, really like the grit it gives, both those pedals together. So let's move on to the top row here. And the first pedal in this chain is the compressor. This is the xotic SP Compressor. It's a little mini thing. There's two knobs here. This one controls the overall volume, and this one controls the level of compression. And there's a knob of high, low, mid for how much compression it is. So I use this in almost all my slap lines when I'm playing live. I may use it on recordings coming in just to kind of tame a little bit of the peaks. But I find playing live, I really dig in playing fingerstyle. And when I go to slap, I'm really not getting those sounds to come through. So I use this as kind of a volume boost and to even things out. So in a case of like the song Breakaway. Just gives a little boost, doesn't color the sound at all. It's really transparent, and that's what I really wanted for this. And I have a little bitty space on there, so I thought it fit really well. And I leave that on all the time. So any of the effects that are on the top row for these two monster pedals here, the compressor is always on. I almost never turn it off. Let's get into this big purple guy up here. This is the Soundblox Pro Bass Envelope Filter. It has 23 different envelope filters. It has a 6-band EQ, 7-band EQ. It has normal and inverse. It has a bass like wet dry mix. It has this pedal is entirely way too smart, and it's way too smart for me. I got it because we were looking to do some kind of different, dare I say, dubstep effects and kind of the early creations of our band that are since, those thoughts are kind of gone. And this pedal actually does so many things. There's an LFO on it, so it can do different sine wave things. You can do like an auto repeat. You can tap tempo on it. There's just a ton of stuff it can do. It is entirely too much for what I do now. but I like some of the sounds on it, and which is why I've kept it. So there are 6 programmable sounds that you can store on here. The first is kind of the first slap sound that I found, and it worked pretty well for some songs that we were doing back then. I really don't use it much anymore, but kind of sounds like this. Has kind of a cool tail effect. And unlike the MXR, the cue is a lot easier to dial in with, using fingerstyle. So I can either get it to hit right away, or I can have it, have the tail come in, like almost a half second after I hit it. You kind of hear it, wow. So I kind of like that sound. I'll use it here now and then in Open Jam, but right now it's not featured on any recordings. Maybe someday. The next one is, I call this the Bubblewrap sound effect. It's cool. I dialed it in one day, screwing around with it, and I liked it. I use it on the distorted solo along with distortion. So I'll put in this bass soul food. Has kind of that cool wow wow going on. I use that in any like distorted bass leads, but mainly the one in Kevin's Space Adventures. And the next sound on here is almost just a phaser sound. It's a really slow moving phaser, and I use this on the song Get Up, where after the guitar solo comes in, there's a slap solo on the bass. So I use that occasion if I had a choice. If I had to get rid of one pedal, either the Micro Flanger or this one, I would keep this one because it has other sounds on it. I would get rid of the flanger and I would just use this on Kevin. It's close enough. It'll get me really the sound that I'm looking for. Then there's this tiny little button, which is really hard to hit with my shoe on stage. And there's 3 other sounds that are here in red. So the first one is similar to the MXR envelope filter in the manual. I think it actually says it's similar to the MXR pedal. And I was originally kind of thinking, okay, maybe I can replace all of the filters with this one. I'll get into it why and a little bit why I don't. But this is it kind of sounds the same. It's a cool sound. I like it. I do use this one on occasion when I just need like a regular envelope filter, mostly open jams and things like that. This next one is featured in the song Strange. It's just a slightly different sound, and kind of all these sound similar. Some of them emulate different pedals that are out there. Of course, they're not the same as the original. Some of them are different sound effect type things, but this one is in the second verse in Strange. Kind of a cool sound. And then the last one here is kind of more of a sound effecty type thing. There's almost a slight delay between the time that I hit the string and the time the sound comes out. From there we go to this blue pedal. This is the Soundblox Pro Multiwave Bass Distortion. It is another very similar to the purple pedal. It's not quite as complex. There are, again, 23 different distortions, but it's not a standard like a bass soul food overdrive or like your tube screamer on guitar or anything like that. It is almost a digital distortion. It's kind of strange, and originally I bought it to go along with the purple pedal. This one I'm really close to getting rid of because I really don't use it that much. There's one song that I use it on, we'll get to that in a second. But let me just play some sounds on it. Again, these are things that I have saved in here. That's kind of like a normal distortion, one of your more straightforward ones, but you hear that? There's kind of this weird, like, buzzing. I don't even know what you want to call it. It's more, I call it digital. That's kind of what it sounds like to me. From there, I have almost the same thing, except I have a volume boost on it, in case I ever wanted to do like a crazy distorted lead. Same type of sound, just kind of louder and a little bit more worse, I guess. It's the same as the first. No, that's something else. Next one is the original sound that I had for Under the Moonlight. This one kind of has a short attack on it. It could be really kind of used in a funky way if you really wanted to. I like it. I like the way it sounds. I've left it on there. I've moved over the bass soul food for Under the Moonlight just because I'm kind of planning on getting rid of this pedal, but it's a decent sound. Let's go on to the second bank, and this is more of a sound effect. It's called a single band distortion. I don't know what that means. I'm sure somebody who studies distortion could tell me. It almost has a wah effect to it, and it has multiple kind of voices going on in there. It's a pretty interesting sound. And what I use this one for is our song Truth Comes Knockin', in addition to the last band on the bass envelope filter. It has a really interesting sound when you combine the two. It's kind of hard to play because of the way the wah kicks in and then the distortion kind of tags onto it with kind of its own wah tail. It kind of makes it interesting to play because there's a lot that gets cut off and a lot of little notes you got to really dig in to get. I use this on this is how I wrote the riff for Truth That Comes Knockin', and the whole solo is towards the end of the song is with this combination. This next one is, I used it on a song that we did many, many years ago in kind of a tapping section, but it was more of a, if you can imagine like a 6/8 ballady tapping thing going on. Kind of sound like this. And then I used this, there was like a melody where all the instruments came in. And the reason I play that is because the next sound kind of comes into it. So the next sound is an octave, but it's not your typical octave. It's actually an octave kind of below and kind of above. And I use this in conjunction with the Bass Octave Deluxe for that last part. Take it up an octave and so now let's get into why I have 2 sets of pedals and 2 loops and that kind of thing. What I wanted is I wanted to be able to have 2 different styles of envelope filter, and distortion. So if we focus on the things with the lights on right now, on the bottom row, I have, in this path goes from left to right for both. So I have the distortion feeding the envelope filter. And in the top row, I have the envelope filter feeding the distortion. And it's just different sounds that come into this envelope filter and how they react to things. So if I were to play a line on the bottom row, which is the bass soul food going to the MXR bass, it's going to sound much different than in the top row where I have the bass envelope filter, even though it's on the MXR setting, going into the Soundblox, because of the fact that I'm feeding filter into distortion versus distortion into filter. So it's just a different sound, and I've been experimenting which one I like. I kind of like both. I have the pedal board with the room for it, and you don't want to really waste any room on your pedal board, so that's why I'm doing that. That is it for the pedal board walkthrough. Hope you found this interesting. If you have any questions on any of these pedals, I mean, I could probably do a 3-hour video just on the Soundblox Pro envelope filter, and I still don't even understand what I'm talking about because of all the different LFOs and tap tempo things. Do a search for it on YouTube. There is a guy from Source Audio, that's the company that made these pedals, who does a really good demo of this pedal and both of them together. And but if you want any more sound samples, think you like one or the other, and you have any questions, I have used a number of pedals over the years. This is kind of what I'm on right now. Like I said, I am looking to replace the blue Multiwave distortion with something. I tried a fuzz pedal from MXR, and I tried the Aguilar grape phaser. Now the grape phaser was really great, but with this bass, it distorts the input, and I didn't want to screw around with turning the volume down or using like pads or buffer pedals or anything like that. I ended up getting rid of it. Since then, I've actually picked up the purple bass and the precision, and I actually have a much lower input bass that I could use for something like that. So it may find its way back to the board. I still have a couple power supplies open. And then if there's any questions on what this guy is, let's see if I can move this over. This is the Aguilar Tone Hammer DI. I featured this in a couple videos. This is how I record. So out of my pedal board, from this over here goes into the input on the Tone Hammer, and then the XLR out goes into my interface, which is off screen. You can't see it. And that's how I record. I leave the Aguilar on all the time for all my recordings. I just have kind of a basic setup similar to what the Tone Hammer 500 is, which is my amp. And that's what I use. It sounds really great. Look for a video on that in the future. And I'm not going to tease any more other than that. So if you like this video, leave me a comment below. Let me know what pedals you use on your rig. If you're a bass player, guitar player, I want to give a special thanks to Mark N. I won't say his last name on the video here, just in case he doesn't want it on there. But he kind of inspired me to do this video, even though I've been wanting to do it for years. I just finally got my act together, so to speak. And thank him for prompting me and finally getting it to get this done. And I guess until then, like, comment, subscribe, do the YouTube thing, and until next time, have an amazing week.